What happened to Daniel Ricciardo? Was the writing on the wall for a while? And what comes next for Danny Ric? Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to On Track GP. Today we'll be taking a deeper dive into where it all went wrong for Daniel Ricciardo. Why does one of the most celebrated drivers of the last decade once again find himself fighting for his F1 future? The decline of Ricciardo since his Red Bull peak via spells at Renault and McLaren is one of the most curious stories of this decade so far. With that in mind, let's take a look at some of the theories to get to the bottom of where it all went wrong for Danny Ric. Did he cash out after leaving Red Bull? Back in the middle of 2018, Ricciardo was the Jensen to Max's Lewis. Verstappen was fast emerging as the more naturally gifted of the two, sure, and Red Bull was in the process of becoming Team Verstappen, but there was still very much a place for Daniel, all charm and a winning smile to thrive. Then, on the first Friday of the summer break, Ricciardo's decision to leave Red Bull in 2018 marked a turning point in his Formula One career. Once seen as a potential world champion, Ricciardo's move to Renault for a lucrative contract was perceived as prioritising financial gain over competitive ambition. This decision not only altered his image as a career-driven driver, but also signalled a shift in his priorities. Following his departure from Red Bull, Ricciardo's focus appeared to shift towards building his personal brand. He ventured into clothing and alcohol ranges and made video game appearances, as much as cultivating a social media presence more akin to an influencer than a racing driver. While he managed to maintain his performance at Renault, his struggles became apparent during his tenure at McLaren, where he was outperformed by teammate Lando Norris. The impact of Ricciardo's decision to leave Red Bull has had lasting effects on his career. The move, primarily motivated by financial considerations, may have irreversibly affected his competitive drive. The loss of that all-encompassing focus on racing success has proven difficult to regain, suggesting that while the decision may have been financially rewarding, it came at a significant cost to Ricciardo's racing career and legacy. He can't drive backmarker cars. Ricciardo's most impressive recent performances came not in a race, but during a Pirelli tyre test at Silverstone, driving Red Bull's dominant RB19. His lap time in this test was reportedly competitive enough to have placed him on the front row of the British Grand Prix, suggesting that Ricciardo's skills may still be present when given a highly competitive car. Rumours on the day, since confirmed by Christian Horner in the latest series of Drive to Survive, revealed Ricciardo's quickest lap would have put him on the front row of the British Grand Prix, so within 0.241 seconds of Verstappen's time for pole 2 days earlier. It is dangerous to look too deeply into the headline times when such a crucial thing such as fuel loads, plus the fact that Verstappen's pole was on a dry and green track in a rain-affected session, are unknown. The fact that he was capable of such a competitive lap at all, however, would suggest that the problem may not be totally with Ricciardo. Could the Daniel of old, of his 2014 to 18 Red Bull peak, still be in there somewhere, just without the machinery to fully express himself? This performance raises questions about Ricciardo's ability to adapt to less competitive machinery. Throughout his career, there's been a trend of Ricciardo excelling in fast, well-balanced cars, but struggling with the more difficult or underperforming ones in turn. His earlier days at Toro Rosso saw him perform well but not dominantly, yet when promoted to Red Bull in 2014 he immediately showed exceptional form, even outperforming four-time world champion Sebastian Vettel. Is he simply someone who regresses to the mean with a difficult car but would still fly if presented with a really competitive one with lots of downforce? Take a look at his earliest days, and that trend of his own performances level shooting through the roof in a quick car has always been there. Despite some eye-catching performances, sixth at the Bahrain 2012 sticks in the memory, Ricciardo did not assert himself over Jean-Eric Vergne at Toro Rosso sufficiently enough to make himself the outstanding option when Mark Webber retired in 2013. Hence Red Bull's public courting of Kimi Raikkonen throughout that summer. Yet when he was promoted to the senior team and finally given a compliant front-running car in 2014, Ricciardo almost overnight grew to a level most, including Red Bull, possibly even Daniel himself, had not seen coming. So much so that he ended up running Sebastian Vettel, the reigning four-time world champion, out of town. It's true that some drivers are just better equipped to drive fast cars. The irony of Ricciardo's situation is that while he seems to thrive in competitive cars, he now faces the challenge of improving himself in less optimal machinery if he is to stay in Formula One. This created a catch-22 situation where Ricciardo needs a fast car to showcase his best performance, but must prove himself worthy of such a car by excelling in less competitive cars. His time at McLaren messed with his abilities. Daniel Ricciardo's struggles at McLaren may have been rooted in a fundamental clash of cultures rather than just car performance issues. McLaren's approach of inundating drivers with technical information proved challenging for Ricciardo, who has always been more of an instinctive driver than a technically minded one. This mismatch was evident in instances where his race engineer would provide detailed coaching during laps, a level of micromanagement that seemed at odds with Ricciardo's natural driving style. The impact of this cultural clash was apparent in Ricciardo's performance trajectory at McLaren. He showed promise in his debut race with the team at the 2021 Bahrain Grand Prix, out-qualifying his teammate Lando Norris. However, as he became more immersed in McLaren's data-driven approach, his performance declined. The team's intense focus on data analysis seemed to confuse and overwhelm Ricciardo, gradually eroding his confidence and natural driving instincts. By 2022, his performance had deteriorated to the point where McLaren felt compelled to end their partnership. Since reuniting with Red Bull in 2023, both the team and Ricciardo have acknowledged the negative impact of his time at McLaren. Christian Horner noted that they initially struggled to recognise Ricciardo's driving style when he first returned to their simulator, indicating how significantly his approach had been altered. Ricciardo's brief return to racing in 2023 before a hand injury sidelined him showed that he was still in the process of unlearning the habits developed at McLaren. Upon his comeback at the Hungarian Grand Prix, Ricciardo and Red Bull demonstrated a clear understanding of the issues faced at McLaren. They emphasised a strategy of simplification, focusing on rekindling Ricciardo's passion for Formula One and concentration solely on the act of driving. However, implementing this approach proves challenging, especially under the pressures of competitive racing. The persistence of ingrained habits, particularly in high-stress situations, highlights the complex nature of a driver's psychology and the difficulties in overcoming deeply established patterns in such high-pressure environments as Formula One. Did the fear get to him? Jules Bianchi's tragic accident at the 2014 Japanese Grand Prix was a sobering moment for many Formula One drivers, though its freak nature made it easier to mentally compartmentalise. However, Romain Grosjean's fiery crash at Bahrain in 2020 was a stark reminder of how close the sport teeters to disaster, sparking fear among drivers, especially Daniel Ricciardo. Romain Grosjean's fireball at Bahrain, that's the sort of incident that plays on your mind. The sport coming so close to catastrophe after such a relatively innocuous first lap touch. It really could have happened to any of them. Ricciardo, known for his early advocacy of the Halo system in 2016, stood firm on driver safety when others, like Nico Hülkenberg, criticised the Halo aesthetics. Ricciardo believes safety should always be prioritised, dismissing arguments that F1's allure was tied to inherent danger. There is no need to be a hero about the situation, he said of Hülkenberg's complaints that the Halo looked horrible and sent the wrong message, with F1 meant to retain an element of danger to be sexy and attractive. After Grosjean's crash, Ricciardo expressed frustration with F1 for replaying the accident repeatedly, accusing the sport of toying with drivers' emotions by playing constant replays during the red flag delay. Is it a mere coincidence that his decline began not long after that? If it is true that Ricciardo's priorities had already changed by this point, the activation of this self-preservation instinct would have only slowed him down a little bit more. In his autobiography, Ricciardo's friend Jenson Button explained that he had never experienced the fear behind the wheel of an F1 career until he announced his retirement in 2016. And once the thought entered his head that something could go wrong, he couldn't wait to get out of there. It is something he would never admit to now, because what would there be to gain? But when his career is finally over for sure and there is really no way back, it will be fascinating to learn if Grosjean's crash had a bigger impact on him than anyone could have known at the time. It would go a long way to explain the Ricciardo that we see now, someone who makes all the right noises and says all the right things in public, but whose heart deep down is possibly no longer in it. Despite his exit from Red Bull and no confirmed seat for 2025, Daniel Ricciardo's future in motorsport remains bright. At 35, the 8-time Grand Prix winner has plenty of options, and while his next move is undecided, he is in no rush to make a decision. Ricciardo is wisely taking his time to reflect and explore new opportunities, ensuring that his next step is one that reignites his passion. While the likes of Alexander Rossi, Romain Grosjean and Marcus Ericsson have swapped F1 for Indycar, Ricciardo has his eyes on other possibilities, including NASCAR. With a lifelong admiration for the series and a connection to its culture through his number 3 branding inspired by Dale Earnhardt, Ricciardo is excited about the idea of taking on a NASCAR challenge. Even if he's not fully committed to competing, he's keen to experience iconic tracks like Daytona, which could offer him a thrilling new chapter in his racing career. What about Motogp? Ricciardo is a well-known dirt bike enthusiast and has admitted he would love to have a go at swapping 4 wheels for 2. However, it came with the following caveat: I would be very, very slow and possibly horrendous. Beyond racing, Ricciardo's charismatic personality makes him a prime candidate for sports broadcasting or even ventures into broader television roles. With the global success of Drive to Survive, Ricciardo's star power has only grown, opening doors to media opportunities outside the track. Whether behind the wheel or in front of a camera, Ricciardo's journey is far from over, and fans are eager to see where his unique blend of talent and charm will take him next. So where do you think Danny Ric goes from here? IndyCar, NASCAR, MotoGP, WEC, punditry, retirement altogether. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, remember to like, share and subscribe. Keep the pedal to the metal, and I'll see you in the next video.